All right, welcome to Cwic Show. I am Greg Mattson, your host. We are talking in this episode about the ethnic studies curriculum that has been approved by the California Board of Education this year, and that I believe goes into implementation. Is it this year, Assemblyman?
Well, it depends, because the state, the legislature is currently trying to make it a graduation requirement.
Okay.
So that bill goes into effect, then that'll, will be enacted as of next year.
Okay.
So, yes.
So let's talk about this a little bit. I want to go over what this is, because this to me is landmark here. This is the most aggressive thing I've seen in the states out there, of any state. And I think people are going to be very, very surprised at what is actually written in this document here. So when we talk about the curriculum in this episode, I want everyone to understand what is being pushed here. Who is it behind this curriculum, and what are they trying to accomplish? Our guest today is Assemblyman Kevin Kiley from California. I was made aware of him from a link, actually from my sister, where Kevin, you were basically trying to fight what you can here, I guess, from a minority position against what this ethnic studies curriculum represents, and it getting approved here. Where are we at with the ethnic studies curriculum right now? As I said, when does it get implemented, and is there any turning this around?
Well, the legislature has been considering a bill that would mandate ethnic studies as a high school graduation requirement. That has now passed the state assembly. It's on to the state senate, and assuming it passes there, the governor can then sign it, and every California student will be required to take a course in ethnic studies in order to graduate from high school. Concurrently with this, the State Board of Education has been working on the model curriculum that will presumably be used to form this course that every student will be required to take. And it's now on the fourth version of the model curriculum. Each version has provoked widespread opposition, not only from parents, but from many different groups who feel like the curriculum denigrates them or excludes them. The first version was called reminiscent of the California Legislative Jewish Caucus, said it echoes the propaganda of Nazi Germany. So this has had a lot of problems, to say the very least, and yet our state's politicians are ready to impose it on every single high school student in the state.
So, this is what you said, part of what you said on that, on the floor there. The anti-Semitism that you bring up is just one manifestation of what is so fundamentally wrong with what is the proposed curriculum. And it's not just the exclusion of groups, the denigration of groups, it's that it seeks to impose a particular worldview on students rather than giving them the analytical tools they need to get through school. I've gone through this. I've gone through 1,000 pages of this curriculum. It is a worldview, right? It looks to me, it's not a matter of X's and O's. It's not a matter of alphabet. It's not a matter of history. It looks to me like indoctrination.
Well, that's right. Is that it definitely takes a particular ideological point of view, and then sort of makes that normative, makes it seem as though this is sort of the objective reality, and you just need to learn that this is the way it is, as you learn other kinds of hard knowledge in school. And so that, to me, is an extremely dangerous thing, where you're sort of trying to dictate the future of our society by locking in a particular view of the world in the minds of our young people. That's never the way our country has progressed. That's never the way that education has worked. The entire idea of an education is that you provide students with the foundational skills that they'll need, and knowledge that they'll need to make their way in the world, to think for themselves, to come to their own opinions and worldview. And then, everyone can participate in our democracy accordingly. And, you win some arguments and you lose some arguments, but that together we eventually, hopefully reach some semblance of truth and progress over time. This is all putting up a wall against that whole process and saying, no, we've decided what the truth is now. This is it. And every student needs to, have this fixed in their mind.
Is this Kevin, is this implemented K through 12? Is it just specifically to high school? What are the suggestions on that right now? And what are they trying to mandate?
So this is just for high school.
Okay. So it's focused just on high school. All right. So I want to play the devil's advocate for a second here. And I'm going to bring up a couple of quotes here that we have from the board president, the education board president, Linda Darling Hammond. This is what she said. The passion that we hear about this topic illustrates why ethnic studies is so important. Much of it is a quest by each person or each group for a sense of belonging and acknowledgement, right? She further states, ethnic studies demands that we understand the forces that stand in the way of our shared humanity so that we can address them. Isn't this just all about getting along? Isn't this just all about including, especially in California, where there's so many a large population of minorities?
Well, I mean, if that were the case, then you wouldn't have had this reaction from many groups. That's precisely the opposite of that. That says that this curriculum does not promote belonging with respect to them, but promotes exclusion and denigration and discrimination and hate, which is what we heard from the Jewish community, which we've heard from other communities, because that is the very premise of the whole curriculum, is one of division, of separating people according to their background or whatever the characteristic might be. And so I think that, if you want to strive for a pluralistic society in which everyone has respect for one another, and we respect that all people are created equal. Ethnic studies is, or at least as it's envisioned here, is exactly the opposite of what's needed. And so I think that is why you sort of see these statements from Linda Darling Hammond that, couldn't be further from the truth, is because it seeks to, conceal what the curriculum is really all about.
Let's talk about what that curriculum is all about here. This is just a few quotes. Again, I've been through actually about 1,200 pages here in the last several days from the Board of Education in California. Here is a couple of excerpts on what they say the purpose is of this curriculum. I quote, "One of the main focuses of ethnic studies is translating historical lessons and critical race theory into direct action for social justice." In direct action, right? This is so much of this is about activism and activating the kids. It says in this section, and this is going into a sample lesson that is given actually in one of the Northern California school districts. It's Citrus Heights. And it says, in this section, I will address the instructional methods used to develop the content, knowledge, and skills necessary for student empowerment and social action on a school and community level. While direct instruction and modeling are used to introduce new concepts, such as defining intersectionality, defining critical race theory, stereotypes, and internalized and externalized oppression. I mean, we're going to hit on a couple of other quotes here, but this is to me is just beyond the pale for curriculum. It's not just a matter here, Assemblyman, of giving knowledge, right? Or whether it's an interpretation of history or a facts. It's activating, right? Its focus here is to activate the kids. Have you seen that in the curriculum?
Well, yeah, that's exactly right. There is a sense that the curriculum not only seeks to instill particular ideas, but then seeks to sort of further inculcate those ideas through, a more action-oriented type of learning. So I think that is, crucial to the whole design of this, is that it wants to, get students to behave in a certain way, to agitate for particular types of social change, rather than becoming whatever type of agent of change they believe to be right.
So, a couple quick quotes here, also coming out of the Board of Education here. The first unit, they give an example here in this sample lesson. The first unit provides an introduction to the key terms of race, ethnicity, oppression, assimilation, acculturation, nativism, discrimination, and integration, with a focus on identity. I ran the term identity, by the way, in one of these outlines that was 378 pages. And 176 times the term identity comes up here. Ethnic studies focuses on themes of social justice, social responsibility, and social change, right? Just adding in here the idea that this is not about integrating just history. I could not find anywhere in these 1,000+ pages here any type of a history that would talk about just someone of an ethnic minority and their contribution to the United States in just a historical fashion. Every single reference I saw to an individual is a leftist activist. How does something like that get through to the Board of Education? How does this get through the Assembly? I know there's a very large majority of Democrats there, but I still don't see how you can have, this is, I mean, I hesitate to say this, but this is a radical agenda in here.
Well, I mean, you look at who's on the committee, and it is not meant to be a balanced sort of group that represents the full breadth of groups and beliefs within society. It instead is, kind of a product of the groupthink culture you get on many academic faculties that think that the purpose of a university is to teach about, but students a particular ideology. Of course, this is university professors in combination with some, I think, at the high school level, who are creating a curriculum for high school students. But the sort of ideological bent of the curriculum, that's not a defect in their view. That's the whole point. So I think that that's why it got through, because that's the whole purpose of the curriculum. That's why they're trying to impose it.
Okay, and that's there. You can't say anything different. That's exactly right. If you run through all of these pages, there's no way. It is, and I try to tell this to people about critical race theory and this social justice movement. Nobody's hiding anything. This is not, well, you're just taking a strange interpretation of this, or a right-leaning interpretation. Nobody is hiding anything when they do this. It is outright. I mean, the first versions of this had a support of Pol Pot, the Cambodian communist dictator from the killing fields, right? And it also it was anti-Semitic. It was completely had the BDS terminology in there.
Right.
It's outrageous. Now, a couple things here I wanted to talk about, because some people might think, well, okay, well, this is only going to be in the most radical schools and with the most radical districts and teachers, or et cetera. But a couple things that you can see what they're trying to do here. They ask the administrators of each school district to identify the right teachers, right? So that means, okay, I'm already getting a very leftist type of radical agenda here. They want you to identify those that are willing to teach this. So that's going to make sure that you're not going to get any kind of a balanced representation when they go out and find the right teachers, so to speak, or even those that are willing to go out and teach this. Secondarily, just like something that is, you see this in the diversity, equity, and inclusion departments in universities. It comes in and it just kind of takes over the other departments in many different ways. This is what they say about spreading this through the school. It's not just, many parents might think, well, this is just the one class, all right? We can set this in a box. It's the one class that they'll have in ethnic studies, and that's not the case. Here's what it says. Ethnic studies is by its very nature interdisciplinary, and ethnic studies teachers can collaborate with history, social science teachers, teachers in language arts, visual and performing arts, and other subjects as well. This collaboration will help to ensure that the curriculum is aligned to the skill expectations in the state's history, social science, and language arts content standards. Beyond that, it can help to ensure that the concepts and principles of ethnic studies are present throughout the curriculum, and that means all of the curriculum of the school, and are not just limited to the ethnic studies classroom. I mean, how long is it going to take for this to just immediately spread out throughout every department and every class in high school if this is mandated?
Well, I mean, you bring up a really important point, because that is crucial to this agenda, is that this isn't just going to be some isolated class and box you have to check. They actually envision it as a unifying thread of your entire education. And so this is why I call it the anti-civics, because we used to think of civics in that way, that civics wasn't just one class, but it's what, bound the entire curriculum together, is this idea that the purpose of your education is to empower you to be an active citizen and participant in our democracy. But we've sort of lost touch with that idea. We don't really teach civics anymore, or if we do, it's just a minor add-on to one subject. So there's been this sort of vacuum. There's been this void in our understanding of what an education is all about. And there's been nothing that sort of is a unifying thread. So I think that the proponents of critical race theory are essentially exploiting that vacuum. And they're saying, if we're not going to have this unifying thread where students are taught how to build their society up, we're going to have a unifying thread that teaches them how to tear their society down.
Well, and I think each other, right? I mean, you could just start formulating in your mind this idea of sitting in your math class, and you have people of different minorities in there, different ethnic backgrounds, and everything is set in an intersectional type of way where it's like, okay, you have the right answer over here. Your answer is different, but that's right too, based on your lived experience and your background. And if this goes through and it's mandated, it's not going to be in the too distant future, I think, that you're going to see protests break out in high schools everywhere. Not protests necessarily, although I hope so, against the curriculum, but protests because the students have been activated by the teachers and by the curriculum. I want to get back to the activism for a minute here. A couple more quotes on this, because I think this is the thing that people really need to get out of what is going on with this curriculum. They are activating your kids and your grandkids through this. That is the point of it. And I'll put links to all of these documents that are from the California Board of Education in the description here. But again, a couple quotes here. One question, this is quoted, one question that is in all of the curriculum for every ethnic group is, how did political power develop within communities? Right? So what they're looking for, this is all a political buildup. How did political power develop in the communities? That's a major question. How did this build up? So they're trying to look at the protests. They're trying to look at activism, right? That's the setup. And then it says this: ethnic studies teaching and learning is meant to serve as a bridge between educational spaces and institutions and the community. In other words, the activism it's not held in the school. It needs to go to your community. Thus, encouraging students to apply their knowledge to practice being agents of change, social justice organizers, and advocates, and engaged citizens at the local, state, and national levels. One more. This course, another example of one of the courses, sample courses, this course is designed to provide key academic language, historical lessons, and critical, and that should be a capital C there. It's not, but it should be, and critical literacy skills that empower students to articulate and address the social injustices they see and experience. And Kevin, I've gone through this. I could pull 100, 200 examples of where the purpose of this is to create social change in being active, in having activism. Again, I keep coming back to the same question. I cannot believe that this has been approved. This is not about what am I thinking of here? The Civil Rights Act. This is not the Civil Rights Act, right? This is not Martin Luther King. This is the power movements, right? This is more Malcolm X. This is Black Panthers. In fact, they bring up as a reference of one of the references to go to the Black Panther Revolution. And then other groups, again, I mean, the references here of what the curriculum will be and the books to read and the essays, they're all radical leftist activists. How does this get through? I just don't understand how it gets through.
Yeah, I mean, it is truly bewildering that we have departed so far from an honest approach to education that you could wind up with something like this. And I think that part of it, quite frankly, is that California's public schools are by and large so bad. We have so many failing schools in our state. We're doing so poorly in teaching kids the basics of reading and writing and math. We're among the worst in the country, actually, when it comes to educating kids in low-income communities. This is sort of a smokescreen that the state is trying to put up to say, we're going to achieve social justice through the imposition of critical race theory, when actually the way to truly create equity in education is to engage in education reform through things like school choice that allow for greater educational opportunity. Because when you have students who are able to graduate from high school, at the right reading level, rather than at a fifth grade reading level, then they're actually a lot better prepared to create change in the world in the way that they believe is right for them. But instead, this curriculum is failing to correct for the deficiencies in our education system, not doing anything to give students the basic skills they need for success in life, but simply trying to kind of program them for an instrumental political purpose.
So this curriculum comes in. There's only so much time in a school day. And let's say, even if you're looking at just an ethnic studies class, even if it doesn't go beyond, which it will permeate everything. But let's just keep it in a box for a second and say it's just a class. Do we know what would be removed as far as the current curriculum? I mean, you've only got so much time in a day. I mean, only so many classes. If this was mandated, what do you remove?
Well, I don't know that any requirement will be removed, but it'll certainly eliminate an elective. So, maybe a student might have preferred to take shop or to do career education or, to take music or whatever the case may be. But they lose that opportunity because, critical race theory or ethnic studies, which is an elective right now, is now everyone has to do it.
All right. So obviously, I guess my question would be, if something though is going to be removed, right? I mean, you've got something that you're going to get indoctrinated for an hour as opposed to taking an elective and whatever it might be. couple more points on some of the exercises they're having you do. One of them is to chant "Si se puede." That's one of the exercises. Another one is to follow writing assignments of 2 1,500-word oral history research papers, a 1,000-word research paper on social justice movement. Again, it's saying to the kids, what are we going to do to change this, and then they're going to give them references of leftist activists and give them readings of leftist activists that will serve as the model to be an activist, right? Other references I saw in here were creating signs and bringing that out to the community about inequality and injustice and social justice. Just very, very alarming to see what is happening in here. In the Assembly and in the state Senate there, I'm guessing, by the way, right, are we waiting on anything here from Governor Newsom to move this thing forward, apart from obviously he'd eventually have to sign a bill for this being mandated?
Right, he would have to sign it. I mean, the Board of Education is under his purview in the sense that it's part of the executive branch and it's his appointees, but he's not involved in the curriculum development directly.
Okay, although I did notice his wife is part of the curriculum. I don't know if you've seen that before, but his wife is in there. They don't mention her by name. They just put her documentaries and stuff in there. But I thought that was pretty interesting. What about parents, Kevin? What about parents? What are you hearing back from people on this? Is there I don't see how, honestly, I don't see how you put this back into the box at this point.
Right. Well, there's been a huge outcry by parents, and they see this as a betrayal of the public trust in the most egregious way. They send their kids to school, which education is compulsory, by the way, with an understanding that at school they'll learn the subjects that centuries of experience have taught us are the vital foundation for success in life, and that the values of their students, of their kids, are something that their kids will come to determine on their own in conversations with their parents and their family and their church and their friends and their community and so forth. But those values are not simply going to be handed to them by some instructor. So I think that parents are rightly alarmed that this is the sort of direction that our school system is heading. And I'm seeing it in my community and every community across the state, that there is a growing movement of parents to fight back against this.
Do you think that this will be mandated?
That looks like where it's headed. Sure. I mean, I think that the governor is ready to sign it this year, and the legislature is ready to pass it. And there are districts across the state that are already preparing to implement it.
That is just so concerning. That's so concerning. What options do parents have? I mean, what can they do? Either what options do they have at this point to get involved or to help stop this, or how do they get involved with their school? I mean, if it's mandated, what can you do?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. That's the great evil of these mandates that come down from the state, is that it undermines the authority of local school boards who are accessible by parents. And so it really leaves parents without a voice in their kids' education. So, I think that nevertheless, parents should be in conversation with their school districts and school leaders to assure that this is, if it is implemented, it's implemented in the least harmful way. But ultimately, I think that this is going to have to lead to an impetus for political change, where we have real education reform in California, rather than this curriculum, which is precisely the opposite of where we need to go.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that they bring up here, that one of the original authors, he used to be an assemblyman there with you. He had said that, this is going to be a model for the rest of the states and saying, hey, this is what can be accomplished for everybody else. And it seems to me, even though other states are definitely in some degree or other moving toward something like this, a few other states, California definitely is leading in this. And this is, and I've looked at the other states and their curriculum. It's not good, but I'll tell you, it's not quite to this level of what California is putting out there. I wouldn't want my kid to go to school. My kids are grown up, but I would, as a parent, this would scare me to death. And, I'm not trying to build up outrage or anything like that, but this is not a history class. This is not a let's get along class. This is not a doctrine of multiculturalism. This is divisive. It's very, very divisive, and very much, as you had said in your speech, Kevin, it's very much a worldview that's being imposed on people. So, anything else you want to add in our discussion here on what people can do or where you see this going?
Well, I think that it's important, like I was referencing before, to sort of appreciate that this curriculum is, in some sense, filling a void and has, that's been created by the deficiencies in our existing education system. And so I think that, we need to move towards not only fighting back against critical race theory, but actually reviving the civic purpose of education so that we can actually teach American values in our schools, that we can teach kids about the Constitution and America's founding documents, about things like freedom of speech and the First Amendment, and why that's important to have an open exchange of ideas. We need to teach, these foundational principles in a way that, threads together the whole of a secondary or undergraduate education. And, when you have that sort of revitalized understanding of the civic purposes of education, then there's just nothing for the advocates of CRT to latch onto. I think that, at that point, it will be a fool's errand to try to bring this in because there will be no place for it. So obviously, so I think that is sort of the goal here, is to not only stop CRT from being imposed now, but to make sure that nothing like it can ever resurface again.
That it's interesting. I had a state congressman on from Utah last week, and he said the same thing exactly, saying, "Look, this is the civics that are being taught. It's just a massive void. People don't understand the founding, what was going on, why they came up with these Enlightenment themes, and that is a problem. I mean, I'll ask my kids certain things that when they were going through high school, they don't know anything about these things. They don't know anything about. You have to teach it in the home because it's not being taught. So it's not just a California issue. Assemblyman, is there anything that you guys are working on within the Assembly, within the Senate, anything at all there that can be, or are you just hoping for political change in terms of political leadership there in California to make a change on all of this?
Well, I've been advocating very strongly for school choice and protecting the rights of homeschool families, enabling the growth of charter schools, creating education savings accounts or other mechanisms whereby funding can follow the student. Because I think that the horrific nature of what's trying to be imposed here on the whole of our traditional public education system just underscores the need for parents to have other options. And I think that at the point where those other options are real and meaningful, it'll not only take away the impetus to impose something like critical race theory, which is going to drive parents away, but it also will create the political will for broader education reform, because suddenly our traditional public schools will have to deliver a desirable product to parents and families rather than simply getting assigned students and receiving funding by default.
Yeah, those are great words. I think it really brings to light that much more, though, the fight about school choice And why there would even be one, I don't know, but why there's a fight for school choice to begin with. That seems to go hand in hand with an understanding of what some people are in groups are trying to push through as mandatory curriculum in the public schools. So it's a big deal. Kevin, thanks so much for your time. Appreciate all of your efforts. I wish you the very best of luck. California is my home state. I grew up there. Wonderful state. Just lots of problems there right now. So we wish you the best of luck.
Well, thanks for what you're doing to get the word out. And, hopefully if you can inspire some folks to help us with the fight here in California, then maybe we can still stop this thing and stop it from spreading to the rest of the country.
Great. All right. Assemblyman Kevin Kiley, thanks so much for your time, and good luck to you.
You bet. Take care. Thank you.